Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So for today's video, what we're gonna do is flip the seasons. What I mean by that is we're gonna take fragrances, let's say it's summertime right now. You have summertime fragrances. We're gonna flip the seasons. I'm gonna put wintertime fragrances as summertime fragrances, and we're gonna do the same for spring and fall. This video was inspired by a comment made on my recent It's Hot Out, Who Cares video, basically cold weather fragrances I like to wear when it is warm out. Somebody made the comment to the effect of that they were flipping their fragrances for like winter and summer or something like that, and I told them that's actually a good video idea. Here is that video. So what we're gonna do is I got 3 fragrances per season. We're gonna start in the order of the year in terms of the northern hemisphere. So we're gonna start with winter, and I'm basically gonna assign 3 typical summertime fragrances that I would wear in the winter and so forth and so on. So we got 12 fragrances to get through today, so let's go ahead and get it started. But before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and please hit that bell icon, enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, so we're starting with the season of winter. From the house of Day 3 Fragrances, this is Bani. Day 3 Fragrances, Bani. So in the winter, this would definitely have a quite different effect than it would in the summer. I consider this a perfect warm weather, beach-like vacation scent. It basically is a mango fragrance. Also has a note of papaya, very tropical smelling, very by the beach smelling, a little bit of a floral essence, has just enough sweetness as well. This is a perfect summertime fragrance in my opinion, my favorite warm weather scent from the house of Day 3 Fragrances. Ultimately, what I think this fragrance would come across as in real winter temperatures, it would basically be frozen mango. It has been said by many that if you wear fragrances that have a little bit of a cooling effect in the summertime, that effect is basically amplified in the winter, almost as if the fragrance is iced over. This one doesn't necessarily quite have that. There's not really a cooling element in here. It's just more of the fun, vibrant, fruity, floral, tropical vibe. And I must say, me personally, I've never worn this fragrance in cooler temperatures, but I would be curious to see how it comes across. Once again, from the house of Day 3 Fragrances, we've got Bani. All right, moving on. Next one's coming from the house of Hermes. We've got Terre de Hermes Eau Givree. Terre de Hermes Eau Givree. This was my scent of the day yesterday. I got up early and threw some steaks on the grill. It was hot, it was humid, so I said I need something to counter that. This fragrance absolutely did that. In basic terms, pretty much just smells like grapefruit juice. Has a note of citron, has some juniper, adding to that cooling effect that this fragrance has, and also a little bit of vetiver and a slight note of Sichuan pepper, giving a slightly spicy feel to it, a little bit of depth with it as well. So one thing is for sure about this fragrance, if you wear this in cool temperatures, it already cools the air around you when it is hot out. It is just gonna completely ice over when it is cold out. It smells like grapefruit juice. In the wintertime, it's gonna smell like iced over grapefruit juice, maybe even like slightly frozen grapefruit juice. I remember as a kid, my mom had these cups that you would freeze and then you would put whatever you want to put in it and it would kind of give it a slushy kind of feel. I can imagine that, but with grapefruit juice in the cup. I think that's kind of how this fragrance would come across. So once again, from the house of Hermes, we've got Terre de Hermes Eau Givree. Moving on to one from the house of Louis Vuitton, it's Pacific Chill. Louis Vuitton, Pacific Chill. Now, as it stands right now, this is my top summertime fragrance, so naturally, if I'm gonna flip the seasons, gotta put this on the winter list. This basically smells like a green smoothie, has lemony accords, a lot of fruit, and a little bit of a vegetal kind of base to it, so that's where the green smoothie analogy comes from. Shout out to those who kind of noticed that before I did. And what would this kind of smell like in the wintertime? I think it would basically be a frozen green smoothie. Again, there's not necessarily anything in here that necessarily gives a cooling effect. It's more of just this fun, fruity effect. But if it's really cold out, I imagine you would think like, okay, I'm smelling fruits, I'm smelling that vegetal aspect, I'm smelling the slight citrus, but because it's so cold, it just comes across as if it's basically frozen. Once again, from the house of Louis Vuitton, this is Pacific Chill. All right, we're gonna move on to the spring season, which we're flipping with fall. Typically with fall, a lot of people I think like to pull out fragrances that have spices, some woods, and maybe some tobacco as well. So I kind of covered those bases with these fragrances. We're gonna start off with one from the House of Givree, and it's gonna be Ambassador Intense. Givree Ambassador Intense. Quick side note, I mentioned in my first impression video that I thought all of these were kind of fall and winter fragrances. The original Ambassador, I changed my mind. I think that one can actually be done year round. And if you wanted one that may be a little bit more appropriate for fall or winter, if you were, cared about seasonality at all, this would be that. The reason being is because this one has that same kind of basic baseline of spice and woods that Ambassador has, but it kind of turned the fruitiness down, added this kind of opulent floral nature to it, but turned the spices up, and the woodiness to me is about the same. Sweetness, same thing, it's about the same. I wouldn't really call this a sweet fragrance. I would call it spicy and woody. Best comparison you can make to this one is it's kind of like a Dior Sauvage Elixir, but in its own way, it's not quite the same. That being said, that strong spice and woody element that this fragrance has means that most people would kind of place it in that fall time temperature category, but I'm gonna put it in spring because we're flipping the seasons, obviously. Once again, from the House of Givree, we have got Ambassador Intense. Next one's coming from the House of Memoires. This is Journeyman. Memoires Journeyman. Now, when you talk about spices and tobacco and a little bit of woods, this fragrance here definitely has all of those characteristics. More so spices and tobacco than it is woods. It just does have this kind of, really actually ambroxan I believe is in here, so kind of woody, musky base. Some sweetness to balance it all out, but this is a quintessential fall fragrance in my opinion, so if I'm flipping the seasons, we're gonna put this one on the spring list for sure. Once again, coming from the House of Memoires, we have got Journeyman. Moving on, got one from the House of the Harmonist. It's Hypnotizing Fire. The Harmonist Hypnotizing Fire. This is another one that kind of has that quintessential fall fragrance feel, particularly with the spice in this one. This one's a little bit more of a brighter spice, not so much of a woody characteristic. It's kind of a woodsy base, but it's not really strong. It's all about the spice with this one, with a little bit of vanilla, slight boozy feel, very bright and vibrant spicy feel. I like to describe this fragrance as watching a campfire from start to finish. It does kind of have a bit of a transition to it, but all in all, from the traditional what makes a fall fragrance, you think about spices. This one definitely has that, and it's not quite ridiculously rich that you might consider a winter fragrance to be. But for that reason, we're gonna put it on the spring list. Once again, from the House of the Harmonist, this is Hypnotizing Fire. All right, guys, so we're gonna move on to the summertime, and we're putting winter fragrances here. Winter fragrances, for me, I consider them to often be very rich and dense, maybe a little bit syrupy if they're sweet. They can often have leathery accords. Matter of fact, they can pretty much smell just about like anything, maybe other than citrus, because it's kind of hard to give citrus a really thick and dense characteristic. But as long as they have that texture to them, typically I would consider them a winter fragrance. So for the summer list, we're gonna start off with one from the House of Mason Francis Kirkjohn. This is Grand Soir. Mason Francis Kirkjohn Grand Soir. Now you already know, if you are familiar with this scent, this is thick, dense, rich amber with vanilla accords. A little bit of a spicy feel coming from some labdanum in here, adding a bit of a resinous characteristic to it, but it is overwhelmingly this very pleasant amber accord with loads of vanilla and tonka bean. Very thick, dense, rich fragrance, kind of syrupy feel. The color scheme even kind of lends to that. When you see the color, you think the fragrance is gonna have a certain characteristic to it, and it actually does apply. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of those quintessential, very popular wintered centered fragrances, particularly when you're talking about amber style. Not necessarily the best one, but it is one of the most approachable ones. Once again, from the House of Mason Francis Kirkjohn, we've got Grand Soir. All right, moving on to the House of Lorenzo Pizzaglia, we have got Van Py Rhum. Lorenzo Pizzaglia Van Py Rhum. Now, this one, I might wear this today. I've been wanting to try this one in warm weather. I might do it today, but I'm gonna be outside. It has been raining a lot lately. It's been ridiculously humid, so I'm not quite sure if I really wanna give this one a go. I might wanna go back to a summer scent. I've been testing a lot of cool weather scents in the warm weather lately. I might just be ready to switch it back for a little bit. But this is boozy vanilla with earthy patchouli. It's a very dark vanilla scent. There's not a whole lot of bright characteristics to it, but that's basically the essence of what you're getting from this fragrance. So booziness, vanilla, very natural, kind of almost vanilla bean smelling vanilla. Not a whole lot of sweetness added in my opinion, and some earthy patchouli. When I think vanilla and patchouli, particularly with this kind of dark characteristic that this fragrance has, I'm definitely thinking that is a wintertime scent in essence. Now, you can obviously wear it whenever you want, but that is where I would place it if I was gonna put a season stipulation on it. So, since it's a winter fragrance, we got it on the summer list. Once again, from the house of Lorenzo Pezzaglia, this is Py Rhum. All right, the next one's coming from the house of Dior. It's gonna be Dior Homme Parfum. Dior Homme Parfum. Now, many would consider this out of the original Iris-based Dior line to be the ideal wintertime option. Why? It's the heaviest Iris fragrance out of the three. It has a heavy leathery accord to it. Sweetness on this one, I mean, there's a little bit of it, but I would say it's more leather focused than anything, and a woody base to it as well. This is very rich, it's very dense. That is why this one would be considered the wintertime Iris fragrance from the Dior Homme line, in my opinion. Not to mention, this fragrance really packs a punch. It really has a deep sillage, so smelling this in the summertime could actually be I don't know if I would say suffocating, but it's gonna be noticeable, but you're certainly not gonna get a refreshing feel from it. And that's why we got it on the summertime list as a winter fragrance. So once again, from the house of Dior, it is Dior Homme Parfum. All right, guys, we're on to the last category, which is going to be fall fragrances, which we are flipping with spring fragrances. When I think spring, I think heavy on the florals, heavy on the freshness, and maybe a little bit of a green facet to them. So coming from the house of État Libre d'Orange, this is You or Someone Like You. État Libre d'Orange, You or Someone Like You. If you are familiar with this scent, you know this is a mint fragrance. It's a very fresh, very realistic smelling mint fragrance. It literally smells like you're just holding mint in your hand. It also has this very grassy, kind of just fresh grass, like wet grass base, almost like dew in the morning grass mixing with the mint. There's some floral elements in here also to kind of give it maybe like this garden-like feel, but that's basically what the fragrance smells like, and it definitely puts you in the mindset of springtime. Consider when everything is kind of dead and dried out from the winter, and all the plants and the greenage and the foliage and the flowers are coming back to life. That's what I think this fragrance is absolutely trying to represent, which is why we're gonna put it on the fall list where none of that is happening. It's the exact opposite is happening. Once again, from the house of État Libre d'Orange, this is You or Someone Like You. Next one's coming from the house of Amarud. We've got Silver Birch. Amarud Silver Birch. I have often described this fragrance as walking down a wooden beach path with flowers and shrubs next to the path. So, you may think, well, if you're talking about a beach, maybe you're talking about summertime. No, it's more so spring. I wouldn't necessarily call this one a summertime fragrance. It has a depth to it that may make it a little too strong for summer. But that being said, it has floral aspects to it, dried woodiness to it. There's some smoky vetiver in here that kind of lends to the old birch characteristic. There's a touch of fruitiness coming from a fig-like accord. But overall, that's the overall vibe I get from the fragrance. But yeah, that is happening in the springtime. So it is just warm enough to go to the beach, but maybe you're not getting in that water yet. Anyway, I consider this a springtime fragrance. We're throwing it on the fall list. Once again, from the house of Amarud, this is Silver Birch. All right, and last but not least, coming from the house of 8 and Bob, it's Memoires De Mustique. 8 and Bob, Memoires De Mustique. So this one here, as far as I'm concerned, is basically an ode to the bitter orange tree. You got neroli, you got orange blossom, you got petitgrain. All of that is basically mixing with a base of musk. In my opinion, all of that wrapped into this was meant to kind of be representative of like when the flowers are blooming on the tree. It has a very floral springtime vibe to it. It has a brightness to it, but it's basically like, hey, spring is here, and this is the best of it wrapped up in one bottle based off of the bitter orange tree at least. So that's why it's getting thrown onto the fall list. Once again, from the house of 8 and Bob, this is Memoires De Mustique. Alright guys, that is gonna do it for this video. Let me just give you a quick reminder that this is pretty much a video showing that, you can really wear any fragrance whenever you want. When we put seasonality on a fragrance, it's just another way to classify it, and really for a guy like me, a way to kind of wear all of my fragrances. But there are absolutely no rules in terms of when you can wear the fragrance. You can wear it whenever you want to, but there are situations where it might work a little better. That's all we're saying with the season thing. So let me know down in the comments below if you were gonna do something like this. Pick one fragrance and flip the season, so to speak. Basically do the same thing I did, but just give me one, because I'd be really curious to see what you guys have to say. So thanks again for watching all the way into the end. I really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well. See you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.